Hey guys, welcome back to Creating Careers Podcast. On today's episode, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Dalten Martin. Dalten is a creative in the Birmingham area. He's a filmmaker. He oftentimes works behind the camera in various roles, as well as even stepping in front of the camera to sort of serve the needs of whatever project he may be working on. Dalten has an incredible team of people, including Burvell Bariki, that he works with. And throughout our conversation, I learned a lot from Dalten. Dalten is not like me in the sense that oftentimes I find myself moving from one stage of life or one activity to another without really a break or a pause in between. And Dalten, he slows down. He seems to be very reflective and just simply takes time to learn lessons from one experience and apply them to the next. I truly can say that I learned a lot from my conversation with Dalten, and I'm excited to share it with you today. Check it out. All right.
Yeah.
Dalten Martin.
Yes.
I went blank on your last name there for a second because that's not really how I got to know you initially via Instagram, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. But thank you so much for joining me today on Creating Creators Podcast. I'm really excited to finally sit down and talk with you. We've been able to meet at a meetup. We've also just sort of communicated back and forth a little bit on Instagram, but it really is good to finally sit down and talk with you. Thank you for this.
Of course, man. Likewise. I've seen all your podcasts and, just the different people in Birmingham and all your interviews. And it has honestly been really refreshing to see you highlight the creators at different levels and giving them a platform to be able to just talk about the work they're doing, not only for themselves, but for the community at large. And so I really appreciate the work that you put in. And thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, I think the group that it seems like you're really connected with, the kind of people that you're working with, who I see you connected with all the time on Instagram, it seems like that's such a strong community, and y'all are doing so many great things, and I'm excited to sort of talk through some of that, but then also just to hear your story, I'm excited for. So, but let's start off, and because I don't have this in any of the slides, but I do want to ask. You've recently gone through a little bit of a rebrand on Instagram. Can you tell me a little bit of how that came about and sort of your sort of purpose behind it?
Okay. So I would say about 2 to 3 years ago, I got really into film photography. And that kind of came from studying older films, like cinema films, and getting really involved in just this old way of filmmaking. And so I take a lot of photos and I do a lot of photography. And I was like, I really want to learn like celluloid and how to shoot film, because I really think that is something that we're losing the technical aspects of, the technical skills of. Is there's not a lot of photographers that are shooting film, developing it themselves, and then scanning it themselves. But then two, there's not a lot of people teaching it. And so I wanted to really kind of delve into it. I actually did a 75-mile walk in Spain over like the course of 5 days. And so that was the first time I was like, I'm not going to do any practice. I'm just going to go do this pilgrimage, take a film camera and throw myself to the fire, because I was like, I took a little journal and kind of kept track of what film I was shooting, how the lighting conditions were, what my camera settings were. And I just fell in love with it. And so for a little bit there, I just only took film photos and posted them on Instagram. And, like I never wanted to like put it out there for what a lot of people do today of just like showing your work, try to go viral or try to build this like just niche portfolio or anything. It was simply because I was like, dude, film photos look sick, and as I was developing them too, like I realized that every time you develop a film photo, you have all this dust that gets on it from your environment. And I have a dog, so all this like dog hair is getting on my film, and I scan it and I'm like, at first I'm like, oh my God, I'm ruining these images. And then I started realizing that the cool thing about film is you're replicating reality in a sense, because you're actually taking an imprint of the light. And so it's cool as you develop and you scan, you're actually taking your environment and it's getting mixed in with these images that you're creating. And so, for me, it was cool to be able to have this like real life texture as I'm working on film. And so as I'm talking to, I get so obsessed talking about film because it's just really cool. So I start to ramble and trail off because I have so many just different experiences with it that I can touch on that just you don't really get with digital recording anymore. Like you can't really like you can go in and manipulate an image on a computer screen, but you're not actually physically touching something that you're having to pour chemicals on and then dry it off and then hang it for a couple hours, scan it on a machine, and then boom, your image is there. And then at the end of the day, I can look at my negative and say this is cool. And so I got really
Let
obsessed
me
with
let
that.
me interrupt you just real quick,
Totally, yeah.
because I think first of all, like the passion that I'm hearing in your voice
Yeah.
is awesome right off the start, and then
Hmm.
also like you're very reflective. Like you,
Hmm.
I like to think of myself as sort of like introspective and
Hmm.
reflective, but oftentimes I'm not. I'm just like, I experience the moment and then I move on to the next. But
Hmm.
I value the idea of being able to really think through, like, what am I doing and why am I doing it and what's the significance of what I'm doing. And I just
Hmm.
love sort of that whole idea of like the moment being captured in the film, but then also in the
Hmm.
development process, that additional moment. Like that's really cool that you sort of see that. And then also, man, that was a risky venture to go and shoot
Yeah.
only film, especially when you hadn't done that a lot already. And just because I've shot film, a few times in my life, and probably did not nail exposure most of the
Yeah.
time. So props to you on the risk there, and it seems like it really paid off. I've seen some of those images
Mhm.
on your Instagram.
I definitely learned the value of film because as I was snapping away, I got a little carried away at first, and so everything I see, I'm like, oh, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then obviously I didn't develop my first roll because I didn't really know how to, so I sent it off. And when they told me the bill of sending off like 10 to 12 rolls of film, I was like, whoa, like
Yeah.
this is why people don't shoot film anymore. It's expensive. And so that in a very real way that taught me the value of film. But then that's actually one thing that kind of got me to be intentional with taking photographs because if I was going to take a film photo, and at the end of the day, when you take a film photo, it kind of equates to, I would say, roughly between $2 to $5 per photo, and that depends on your film stock, what chemicals you're using, whether you're developing it yourself or sending it off to get processed. And then even that, like every lab has a different process that they use, whether it's chemicals or how long they put the chemicals on. It's all chemistry. So, people will alter their chemistry just a little bit to be able to have a style or to have a look that they can sell, or, convince people, hey, use our lab over this lab. And so very quickly, I learned that with film, you have to give a little bit of forethought of what you want to shoot. But then afterwards, too, when you're developing, you have to kind of think, do I want this image to be brighter than the way I shot it? Do I want it to have a little more noise in it than what is gonna be there if I develop it this way? And so there's a lot of thought that went into it. So like I think that I had to learn to be reflective because if I wasn't, I was just gonna be blowing money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so but then again, coming back to filmmaking, I think that's important because when you are working with budgets and you're working with client expectations of keeping something under a certain amount, you have to have that forethought. And so, for me, it was a very easy way. Well, I'm not gonna say easy because again, like you said, film is a learning curve, man. Like I made so many mistakes when I was like first shooting, and but I actually what's really cool is I heard a quote one, or I read a quote one time in a book called On Photography by Susan Sontag, and she pretty much explains that if you give a photo enough time, no one will realize it's a bad photo. And
Hmm.
I didn't really believe that at first because I was like, nah, like good photos obviously stand out over bad photos. But if you go back, to when photography was first being invented, we're looking at these images and we're like captivated by them. We're not looking at an overexposed image saying, wow, the first photographer overexposed this, he's terrible. We're looking at it and we're like, this is history. And so that's one thing I realized is every photograph you take is a time capsule for someone else in the future to look at. And
Yeah.
when you kind of have this
I think
mentality.
Well, I think the same thing. I think about like video, like home.
Mhm.
Think about how many dads that just bought a camcorder back in like the 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, I think of my dad in the 80s running around with his camcorder and VCR attached to it, videoing me and my sister when we were opening
Yeah.
presents at Christmas. Like, that was really bad lighting, really
Yeah.
bad story, probably, because I couldn't even speak good English.
Yeah.
You know, as a toddler and kid, I had a horrible speech impediment. But anyway, and then my dad, I'm sure his camera skills and framing and composition was not a thing at all. But yet now we would look at those videos and think how beautiful they are, because partly because of like the nostalgia and memories,
Exactly.
but also the sort of style now that people imitate.
Exactly.
Even like with an FX3 or a Sony FX6 or something, you know.
Well, exactly, that home style of videoing became an entire, like you just said, style that people are replicating now. And again, like, you have people in music videos and films that are paying multi-million dollars to have people recreate that look. And that, again, you know, when you kind of realize these things, it takes the pressure off you, because you don't have to be perfect. You just have to have intention and passion and authenticity in your work, and that's going to translate way more than you trying to get the perfect look or get the perfect image, so to speak. Because at the end of the day, too, it's up to your perspective, you know, and what is perfect to me might not be perfect to you. And so, I don't know, it's just something that always stood out to me when I read that. And in my own photography, it just gave me the confidence to say, you know, to go out there without any fear and say, whatever I get, I get. But in a sense of like, I want to plan to get it, but then if it doesn't turn out the way that I plan to, it's a learning experience. And sometimes I've been more impressed with my mistakes than I am when I actually go and intentionally shoot something, because I'm like, wow, I learned something. You know, I learned that if I'm using a certain lens in a certain lighting condition and I have my aperture, you know, at a certain I don't even know the term. Just my aperture set to a certain, you know, like value.
F-stop.
F-stop. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. No, you're good.
But you know, like if I have my aperture set to a certain f-stop, then it's gonna affect everything, especially like in film, it affects your noise, your texture, just everything. And so going back to the question you asked, because I've rambled for a few minutes.
Yeah, because we did ask about the rebrand. Although I love
Exactly.
all the stuff you've been talking about, I think it's great.
Totally. Recently, so I did a lot of soul searching. And whereas photography is a passion of mine and it's something that I plan to continue, you know, throughout my life. Obviously, filmmaking is something that I'm really drawn to. Telling stories and being able to do that in moving images is really powerful. And I see where getting a still image, like it's all hard. Let me say that, just preface it with, it's all really difficult. And people who can craft an image that conveys an emotion, it's just amazing to see. And again, hats off to anyone that can do it, whether you're a professional or an amateur just getting started, because it takes skill to do. And it's not a skill, it's a skill you can learn, but it also comes from within. You have to have the want to tell your story. And I started falling in love with just moving images and this idea of being able to have this still image over the course of time, and watching these images evolve into a story that has meaning, you know. Because for me, one thing about me, I'm all about intention. If you haven't picked up on that, it's just that's something that really has been driven home in me as I grew up, and even in my adult life, I see it out in the world. As the more intention you have in each interaction or whatever you're doing, you're going to, one, be more fulfilled, but two, see more success in it, because you actually have a want to accomplish it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so this rebrand on Instagram, I just, you know, I believe in manifestation. And so I think that if you're going to go into something, you should go all in. And that even means, you know, in this world of media and social media, is like, you want people to look at you and understand who you are in less than 5 seconds. You know, people get on your Instagram, they get on your Facebook, and they look at your profile picture, they look at your username, might even, they might skip over your bio, because again, bios are so different, but they're going to just start looking at what you have on there. And I realized I had a lot of film photography. And again, I was getting jobs in photography and stuff, but I wanted to show people that I had this idea of something bigger. And it wasn't even about myself. I had this idea of, and we'll get into this in a second because I want to talk about this. But I had this bigger idea of this community of creatives here in Alabama, but the South specifically. And I really thought that this would be a good way, just as I meet people, and start interacting with people, they can see right off the bat who I am, what I do, what I'm about, and what my intentions are. And so the rebrand just came about from wanting to organize everything and just kind of start even posting, posting more of the community I'm working with, highlighting the people that I'm around. Well, also, again, most of them are my photographs, so it's cool because I'm like, oh, look what I'm taking photos of. I get to, be on these sets and hang out with these cool people and learn from all these just intelligent people too, because that's the cool thing about this community. You've gotten to see yourself. It's just everyone's so smart, man. And everyone
Yeah.
has such a passion that you really don't find in many places. And as I built this community, that was just kind of where I wanted to clean up my Instagram, so to speak, and clean up my social media, so that way people can go back and look at my evolution from film photography to what I'm doing now. But then they see where my focus is, so there's no question. I don't want people to look at me, look at my stuff, and have to ask, well, what is it that he wants? What is it that he's going after? What are his goals, so to speak?
Yeah.
So
Well, I will say I was a big fan of Darkroom Dalton,
yeah, yeah,
but I am also a fan of Dalton Directs. So
I
I think
appreciate that.
well, I guess bigger fan of Dalton Martin in general. So so props to you on that. But
Appreciate
Darkroom
that.
Dalton was how I first. I think
Mhm.
even at the meetup, or I guess getting ready for the meetup, we met that time, and I was like, this is Darkroom Dalton. Like I finally get to put a face with that name. So it was neat to meet you then.
Darkroom Dawn kind of came about to where I fell back on that, and I got into a film community where everyone's kind of like doing film photography usernames and kind of communicating in that way. But in a sense, it was really cool because as soon as I changed my name to Darkroom Dalton, this bigger community opened up to me, and I started connecting with all these other people who shot film across not only the like state but across the country and then even the world. When I traveled, just from having the username Darkroom Dalton as I'm shooting, and using hashtags like 35 millimeter film, hashtag Ilford black and white, people are connecting with me and they're like, hey, I'm going here, next month. I want to shoot film. Do you have any tips? And then I was like, I'm actually just getting started. What are your tips? And so again, that's another quick way to learn. But actually, talking about reflecting, looking back on it, I think that was something that I didn't realize the value in, but it was value. You can use social media for at least those things. Networking is huge, and so being able
Oh,
to
definitely.
spread your network very easily is always beneficial. And so
Well, so
yeah,
it seems like you're shifting to some degree. You're shifting networks. Then, like you started
definitely.
off with that Darkroom Dalton that was
Hmm.
connecting you and plugging you into that sort of film community, and now you're
Hmm.
getting in that cinema world
Definitely.
and directing and sort of getting on sets.
Hmm.
So now it's connecting with that community and sharing the work that you're doing and the people that you're
Definitely.
doing it with. So that's cool.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, I want to get into your story a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's talk about like who is Dalton Martin? Like, tell me. By the way, that's really like the alliteration there.
Yeah.
I say
Yeah. I know.
alliteration. The T's are so strong. You have a very strong name. Brian just sort of like falls off at the end, but Dalton, like that really
So
makes a mark, doesn't it? And then Dalton Martin, like you got a strong name, man.
definitely. What's interesting too, like I'm an open book, so I never have my, I never mind talking about anything. My mom, when I asked her like, how'd you come up with my name, she told me very really, she had no idea what to name me. So she opened a phone book, found a name, and then misspelled it on purpose. And so if you look up my name, it's Dalten.
Right.
And it was just something, like I think that she had a really hard pregnancy. And I think that naming the baby honestly was like the last thing on her mind. So when it kind of came down to it, that's just, she found it and that's what she fell in love with. So I don't know,
I've
for me.
I've heard of worse names coming out of bad pregnancies. So
Oh,
I think you're
exactly.
good. I
Yeah,
think you're
exactly.
good.
Yeah, like that's one thing I tell my mom is like, you at least had good taste,
There you
like
go.
you at least found something good. But asking who I am, that is something I grew up here in Alabama. But I have always felt as if, I'm not gonna say I didn't belong here, because I'm starting to realize that there is a bigger community than what I grew up around that is making me realize that it's not where you grow up, it's how you grow up, right? And
Mm.
what you have around you, and the support you have around you. And so, growing up, I just never really felt as if I belonged because, there was, growing up in the South, especially 20 something years ago, it was just a little different, and then I went to Donahoe High School here in Anniston, Alabama, which is a college prep school. I graduated with 26 people, and so it was a really really small class, really intimate class, but that was kind of where I started to delve into media, just a little bit, because my junior year we got a I guess you could call it like a school publication, but it was like video driven. It's called The Pitch. And so we were able to create a almost news cycle for the school where it kind of highlighted, sporting events, what's going on with different, just athletics, different groups, things like that. And we were able to do skits, every week. And so at first I didn't want to step in front of the camera, and I knew nothing about this stuff. And I had a couple friends that were just whizzes when it came to like doing this stuff, and it's so early too. They're using Final Cut to just throw some clips they shot on their like iPhone that was this big, the 3G, the brick, and they're filming on that, then throwing some clips together, and it was fun, it was funny. We did a thing called DSPN, which is Donahoe Sports Network, and we went all out with it. But it was funny because, again, we're a school of 20 people, or we're a class of 26 people, so the school itself only has couple hundred people, so all these people fit into one room, and we're watching this this show. It was awesome. And so the more I got involved with that, I realized that I loved creating. I was going to a school where most everyone was either going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, and those things really just didn't pique my interest. And I even tried to, in a sense, follow that path. I went to Auburn University, and I went as an English major because I was going to go into law school, because I really like the idea of law, but it was more the idea of thinking, just being able to think on your feet, come up with these quick, not solutions, but these arguments, and being able to hash it out. I don't know why, but that just like invigorated me. But then I took a mock trial class, and I realized that I had only watched like Lincoln Lawyer and a couple of these films that showed how to be a lawyer. And so I thought, I could be Matthew McConaughey walking in, slam my briefcase down, open it up, say a couple one-liners, and then boom, I'm good. I was quickly humbled, and I realized that I could be a lawyer, but it was going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And when I did a lot of soul searching, I didn't want to spend all my time doing that, because I knew at the end of the day I wasn't going to be fulfilled in that. And so I switched to marketing, because Auburn's got a fantastic marketing program. And I thought that being able to create for business would be something that I was really drawn to. And I was also watching Mad Men at the time.
It's amazing how movies and TV shows at times just help us make decisions in life, right?
It's funny, and it's also kind of crazy what I'm starting to realize, because like, again, as I get older and I tell my friends this story, they're just like, so that you literally made life decisions based off the TV show you were watching at the time. And I was like, yes. And so far it hasn't failed me, like it's led me on a path that's been super interesting. I've learned a lot. But so I was taking marketing classes, and Auburn University kind of focuses on sales and sales expertise and marketing through being a salesman. And they obviously like have different programs and stuff, but this is just where it seemed that they were taking the classes and taking the program. And I'm a good talker, but I did not want to be a salesman. I never wanted to have to put myself, which again is funny because in cinema, I feel like you're always having to sell yourself, right? It's like everything that all these thoughts like went in my head, and I was like, I don't want to do that. It's kind of like, well, I'm doing that now, just in a different aspect.
I think selling yourself versus selling a product is always easier, because you control the quality of the product then. You know what I mean? Like,
well, without it, totally.
If I'm selling, some lotion, or if I'm selling batteries, or if I'm selling even a camera, like I can't control the quality of that, but I can control the quality of Brian Pope. And if I'm selling Brian Pope, I mean, I either believe in the product or I don't, So.
Exactly. Well, and then, So while I was at Auburn, I even almost dropped out of school against my mom's wishes because I was offered a marketing position at one of these like pyramid schemes, and I didn't realize it was a pyramid scheme at the
Mm.
time. And I was like, "Oh, mom, like this is great. This is gonna help us out as a family, and I'm gonna have a job." And I did that for 2 weeks, and literally the day before my university had like the cutoff for joining classes. And I hadn't dropped my classes yet because I just had this weird feeling of I don't know if this is the right choice. Am I doing this just out of trying to not make ends meet, but just try to make it easier on everybody? Like my mom was going through a rough time at the time. I'm in college. My siblings are at home. They're going to high school, and I just started to feel like, do I need to do something to help us all out? And I quickly again realized that to do that, I just needed to follow my education. My mom had invested all this time and finances into me getting an education, and I was very quickly about to throw that away. And so I did some more soul searching and just said, like, what am I passionate about? What is it that I want to do with my life? And this is kind of also where I first started to fall in love with film. Is I realized, I wanted to make films. I wanted to make something. And I didn't, in a sense, a lot of people don't like when you say this, but I realized it was a job. And I realized that, like you can spend 8 years of your life becoming a doctor, you can spend 8 years of your life becoming a lawyer, or you can spend 8 years of your life becoming a director because someone else is going to do it if I don't. Like it's a job that's out there that's going to pay someone. And if someone's passionate enough and they believe in themselves enough, then that's the job they're going to have. And I told myself that, and I told my mom that. And at first she was just like, like, what are you doing, Dalton? Like, think about it. And, I started just, creating videos around Auburn University. And I went, every time I travel with my friends, I take my camera and just kind of throw these little, just quick little like edits together of our trips. And it was only a month a month or two into doing that, the official DJ of Auburn University ended up contacting me and was like, hey, I want to do some hype videos. I want to do some videos for the football team. Will you do them for me? And we were literally eating lunch. And this is the first time I'd ever been asked to do a video for work, so I'm like literally I think we're eating Mexican, and I'm like choking on my taco because I'm also getting nervous, and he's asking me, how much are you charging me? And I'm like, charging you, man, like I'll do it for free. This is awesome. And he's like, no, I want to pay you. And so he ended up paying me, gave me an opportunity, and it woke something up inside me. And it was just a simple, I think I had at the time like a Canon T Rebel, right? And I'm following him into like the Auburn University football stadium, just getting him literally like mix on his DJ thing. And it's the most simple video, man, but it was the fact that he trusted me. And he's a creator himself too, like he's making his own music, and he's creating for other people. And the fact that he saw something in me at such an early stage in my development gave me the confidence, but then too just showed me, like if again going back to intention and manifestation, is if you want these things and you just take that first step to do it, and you take that next step, once you see that that first step wasn't as hard, then eventually you start jogging, and then like one day we're going to be running, and it's going to be effortlessly, it's going to be just a second nature to us. And so um backtracking now, going back to that, is I did that video, and I started working for a company called, now it's called Hatchie Productions in Auburn, but it was HI Productions at the time. And Holt Ingalls, which in Alabama, I cannot lie, I have to give this man his credit. He's probably the best FPV pilot that I've seen.
Hmm.
Within a month of doing FPV, he was doing videos for Quavo, obviously Migos, different construction companies around the state. But he kind of took me under his wing, and just taught me everything he knew about, like cinematography, directing. He ran his own business, and he was 24, 25 at the time. So he was young, in a small market, and just kind of, gave me that confidence to follow your dreams. If you enjoy doing it, then do it all the way. But then also, again, like on the aspect of doing it for yourself, because he pretty much taught me that you can go work for a company, and you can go, like especially nowadays, all of these companies have different creative positions. And if you do want to go work for a corporate company, like Apple, or I mean anything, like Publix has their own like creative teams and creative services and stuff. So you can go do that. But for me is I never wanted to go back into that world once I kind of realized that when you can create for yourself and you can, and when I say for yourself, I mean you can be in control of your own creations, but you can also help people accomplish their goals. Um, it was just something that I knew that's what I wanted to do at any level, you know, and so I started just doing it freelance. A lot in college, and then actually an Auburn football player hooked me up right after I graduated with a real estate investor out of LA. And so right when I graduated, I told my mom, "Hey, I'm going to LA. I'm going to do this guy's videos, you know, and I'm going to connect out there because this guy, I really don't know how he got into this, but he was an investor for a couple of the Lakers. Terry Riggs, which is a NFL like pro tight end back in the day for the Chargers, and this guy was just so connected that I realized that, you know, this would be a great networking right out of college. This would be somewhere where I could put my foot into a really competitive market, um, and meet people that I knew could help bridge that gap, you know. And so we went out to LA, and within 5 days of being there, 5 or 6 days of being there, we're eating lunch, and or no, we're eating dinner, watching I think the Nuggets game or whatever, and it gets canceled for COVID. Um,
Mm.
and so, you know, I obviously no one really knew what was going on at the time, and I had just had this weird feeling, and I was like, you know, called my mom. I was like, hey, I think I need to come home because I realized one, I was not making the money to be able to support myself in LA. But then two, just no one knew what was going to happen. And, you know, this is like my first time. I'm not going to stay away from home because I'd always traveled and I'd always like been away from home, you know, even at a young age. But it was the first time that it was uncertain. And I was like, you know, where do I need to be right now and what's going to be the best for me? And so I came home to Alabama. Um, and this is, you know, just a weird time again, like I said, for everybody. And I think that a lot of creators during this time had a similar feeling. It was just, you felt helpless almost, you know, helpless because we couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't really meet up with people. I like studying out in the world, and I couldn't go observe. I couldn't go do things that made me feel as if like I could create out of actually like what the world was giving me. But I took that time to study. And so I started kind of just realizing, you know, here in America, we, especially in the film world, we really focus on entertainment. And I, you know, as a creator, I wanted to separate myself. And I was like, if everyone's looking at entertainment, then what is going on around the world that can tap into this worldwide culture of cinema? Because again, for me, is I had this bigger picture of what cinema can be. And so during this time of COVID, I was studying like the French New Wave, all the French directors, which I'm really biased to them, and I don't know why. But a lot, you know, like Tarkovsky out of Russia, a lot of the neo-realists out of Italy, but also like not just learning these directors and these cinematographers, but learning why they happened and how these movement happened, and learning the intention behind why these stories were being created. And so after COVID, you know, it kind of reignited this sense inside of me of um, one, just as a people, you know, COVID really kind of, I think, took the breath out of us a little bit. And it kind of just had people reevaluate their lives, reevaluate what was important to them. And obviously, you know, like family became a lot more important to the people that had their families around, and I think everyone kind of appreciated life a little bit. But what I was seeing was that cinema wasn't backing that up. You know, and again, this is more of a personal gripe, but it's just like when we were going through such a tough time, you know, instead of talking about it, all the films are just escapist. It was look at this next superhero film, and then look at this other epic adventure we have over here. And you know, I just feel like it was almost trying to shield what was going on, and with the reality of what we were dealing with. And in my mind, that's not good for people, you know, because in a sense, it tells us don't worry about the problem, don't deal with the problem. It'll you know, sweep it under a rug and forget about it. And so what I started kind of finding in myself was that I wanted to create to be able to give back to the collective consciousness that we have. You know, like we are a society that loves to consume. And if we continue, in my opinion, if we continue to consume only escapist just entertainment, we're not learning anything, you know. And again, you see that in the box offices, is people are less willing to go spend $20 at the box office now to watch a film because it's time. Their time is more valuable, you know. Like no one feels the need to go watch the next new Avengers movie now because they've seen it all, you know, and it's just being rehashed. And to people is like they would rather spend that 2 hours doing something else that's more valuable to them. And so I did a lot of soul searching, you know, during the COVID time, and just how can you create value in stories that not only again give people this escapist idea that they want, but also gives them a lesson that at the end of the day they leave the theater and they say like that was worth it, you know, that was worth the time I spent, and then go back for more, you know, because I think that's the true success. Like that's the value of success in a filmmaker in my sense, is if someone's willing to watch what you created for just a second time, you got them, you've hooked them, and you've
Yeah.
inspired them, because now they're looking for something inside it, whether it's, you know, a lesson or a technical aspect or anything else. They're now looking for something.
Let me
Really,
interject something here.
please do.
So two things. First of all, I love the mentality of this manifestation
Mhm.
that you talk about, or manifesting, and specifically it connects to what I've heard from quite a few people throughout the podcast, where pretty much you are what you say you are, and that
Mhm.
is one of those things in the creative space that can be really empowering, and at the same time something to sort of like be careful with, because
Mhm.
you know, if you say yes, I think in most of the contexts that I've had this similar conversation, they are usually talking about deciding to say no to something. Like for
Mhm.
instance, I think it was Alagripco, Seth Newell.
Mhm.
He was saying that he loves to take pictures and enjoys that as a hobby, but he doesn't want to be a photographer, and so
Mhm.
he's decided to say no to those kind of opportunities. But I would also say, like what you're saying, this idea of like you are what you say you are in the
Mhm.
creative space, that seems to be like sort of our experience in a nutshell. You know, I mean, you're
Mhm.
saying you're a filmmaker even before you finally make a film. At times, a lot of
Mhm.
people are, and it's that consistent saying that you are something, and then following up with the actions that are necessary to finally make a film. You are a filmmaker from the very start of that, though. You don't have to
Mhm.
necessarily look back and have an IMDb account in order to
Mhm.
really be a filmmaker. You're a filmmaker once you start that journey. So that's really cool. I value that just sort of aspect of your story, but then
Mhm.
also this idea that you're talking about now with like films with a greater purpose than just simply entertainment. I think back to one of my favorite films is a movie and a book. The book is called Push. The movie's called Precious,
Mhm.
and it's a very difficult story. The character has a horrible life that somebody that looks like me and has lived in the life that I've lived and
Mhm.
experienced the parenting and the upbringing that I've experienced really would have a hard time understanding what Precious went through. Right?
Mhm.
If you're familiar, are you familiar with the story at all?
I am not.
Okay, so this is a obese African American
Mhm.
female who is extremely abused by her mother and even her mother's lovers, who rape her and then impregnate her on
Mhm.
multiple occasions. And at one point, I think is impregnated by the very her biological father. At one
Mhm.
point in it, so it's just a horrific situation, right? And you can imagine how a lot of that.
Do you
You need
mind?
something? No, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. Someone is at my door.
Okay, that's what I heard the banging. I wasn't sure if that was. I mean, here at my house, the kids run up and down the stairs. So
Yeah, I think someone's trying to get in touch with my brother. So sorry.
no, you're good.
Continue.
You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
No, but I was saying that with the movie's called Precious.
mhm.
It's such a great story because it's a great character, you know? And I
Yeah.
think that's what I've seen, and I think that's what even with like superhero movies,
Mhm.
you can delve with the issues that society is facing
Definitely.
with good characters. And
Definitely.
and that's something that I feel like is really neat. I think of uh, Max Tatum and some of the
Yeah,
films that
exactly.
he's done
Mhm.
recently. Like he is he's focusing on character, but then he's also focusing on like the real issues that our society is facing at times. And so
Definitely.
it's like inner turmoil kind of stuff in this more recent one that he's done. And I think that it's really neat to see films that first of all, are local. Second of all, that really tackle some really big issues that are all around us, even if we personally may not be delving with or dealing with that exact issue. I think we can all relate to it and know people that maybe have gone through those things. So anyway, I know I sort of interjected a lot there, and feel free to piggyback on any of that, but
Totally.
also I do also want to know a little bit more of your filmmaking journey,
Totally.
specifically. Like I feel like we're at that point. You're done at Auburn. You've moved into, or you moved away to LA. You moved back home. You've studied these French directors and just sort of this international flavor. Take us forward into your actual your video making or filmmaking journey,
Totally.
and maybe even I imagine at some point Brevelle Bariki is going to show up
Yeah.
in this story. So get us to that point, because I'd love to talk about some of the
Totally.
current work you're doing or have done recently, but I want to know a little bit more of your story.
To speed up a little bit, I freelanced for a while, after COVID, because I feel like that was what a lot of people were doing, and especially just to work on your skills, and it was a little bit of everything. I mean, in town, I was working with a couple of real estate agents, real estate investors, but I was trying to even like use their platforms to like pretty much take their commercial platforms and add a film style to it. So, I'm doing more skits and stories and doing things that, like, I guess you could call like doc work in a sense, kind of like combining doc work and commercial work to help these people build the platform that they were building. So that way I could work on my own storytelling. So after a couple of years of that, I moved down to New Orleans because I have been dating my girlfriend for 7 years, and she was down there working. And so I realized that there's a little bit more of a film community down there. And I was really bad at networking I mean, obviously, I say I was bad at networking. COVID just kind of killed the whole networking scene.
Yeah,
And it was
yeah, it
just,
was tough.
again, yeah, it was just hard to like, because you could go, again, meet up with people and, sit at a park and kind of like converse. But at the end of the day, like, I think that when you start talking about like the passion behind filmmaking, you want to be right here. It's like you can't really get a sense of everything when you're having to distance yourself, And so when COVID was over, I was doing work down in New Orleans, and the market down there, and again, not to talk negatively about anything, but I just felt like it was really inclusive, like it was hard to break into it being from someone that was not from the area. um and I was reaching out to studios, literally offering to work for free as an intern, just to be at the studios, learn, who the people were, who the players were, be able to touch the cameras, and I was telling them like, hey, I'll come sweep, I'll come do anything. And it was just, and again, like I give COVID the benefit of the doubt, because everyone was just in this weird time where people weren't hiring, and even getting, like a recent college graduate to come to your studio is just one of these things like, well, we can't really allow you to do that if we're not going to allow other people to come through. And so, it's just this weird time. And so nothing was really working out. And so I started just, realizing, actually, one of my friends who makes music was just like, hey man, there's a really talented dude back home. Him and his business partner, they're doing a lot of good work. They're really kind of taking the place by storm. Why don't you come home and sit down with them? And it was, I don't know, like when people tell me that, I'm like, all right, we're all trying, we're all out here, like, working hard. I was like, I don't want to hit someone up and like, like distract them from what they're doing, but or get in the way of what they're doing. But then I was like, no, like I end up asking my friend, well, what's his name? And it was Burrell Bariki and Brian Owens from Raw Media Productions. And the first thing is, when I heard the name Brevelle Bariki, I was like, are you sure you're talking about from Anniston, Jacksonville,
Yeah,
Alabama?
yeah, yeah.
And
The guy lives in Alabama. Are you
yeah,
sure?
exactly. Well, and again, I grew up here, and I would say I knew pretty much everyone in town. And I had heard the name Brian Owens before, so I was like, I think I know who that is. But then Brevelle Bariki, I was like, there's never been a time in my life, out of any time, like I've been hanging out at the mall, like going to the park, or like just meeting with friends, where someone's like, hey, this is my friend Bravel Bariki. So I was like, okay. I came home. Actually, he at first I was a little intimidated because they did such good work, man.
Yeah.
Like when you see people that are able to do what they were able to do with just themselves, it was intimidating. And I was like, like let me work on my skills so that way when I finally meet them, I have something to show them. As a creator, you're always gonna feel like that, and that's one thing I have to say is like you're never going to feel adequate enough just simply because you always see where you fall short, right? Like as a creator, you're never looking at your successes the same way you look at your mistakes. Like we always focus on the mistakes and we see where we could be better. Whereas the world's not looking at that. Everyone else is seeing what we do good. So one day, I think I posted some photos and Gravel DMs me and he's like, man, he's like, I love how you take photos, just like actually, I'm over exaggerating because Gravel does not say "I love when you do this." He says, "Your photos look really good, man." He's like starts a conversation asking
He's
like
low key.
exactly. And so he is asking what I'm shooting on and ask if I want to meet up in town one day. And so I drove all the way from New Orleans and met him and Brian Owens at a Mexican restaurant. I don't know why all my business like meetings take place in Mexican restaurants, but we met, and from the moment I met them, something that I actually talk about a lot now happened, and it's just this: when you're in the same room and you meet someone that has this that you're cut from the same cloth, conversation just flows easy. And we were starting to spew ideas, and even in that moment, like they're showing me the projects they're working on and telling me what how they did it, how they shot it, show me behind the scenes. And this is the first time I met them, and I'm impressed. I was like, you're just telling me all your secrets, man. Like this is how you do your stuff, and you're just open book. And so I did the same thing. I'm opening up scripts that I hadn't completed and kind of telling them what I had been working on recently. And it was almost immediately, man, I fell in love with those guys. And it was just something that to this day I know it will be one of those defining moments of my career, because since then I think all three of us had a fire lit under us that we realized, what we were working towards is now a little more possible. And from that point on, Bravel is a master networker. The dude knows everybody. He knows how to connect with people better than anyone I know. And, he's pulling me into these circles. He's like, hey, I want you to meet this person. I want you to meet this person. And I'm meeting, like Balin Wood, Nancy Liu, Max Tatum, Max Soto, and just all these different people, that again are so talented, and one, some of these people have been in this industry, and in this market for years. And so it's people that I never really, one, I didn't know was here being established already, but then two, people that I had grown up seeing some of the commercials that these people shot and seeing the work that they had done locally, and not realizing that I was being inspired by that. And then boom, right here I'm talking to some of these people, and it's like, whoa, this is so cool. But then again, like coming back to reflection, is I quickly realized that we have something really special here in Birmingham. It in a lot of film communities, it takes a foundation being built before something actually ignites. And here in Birmingham, I feel like the people that have the passion are building this foundation brick by brick. And they're not waiting around for someone else to come say, hey, this is a great space to do films. Let's do films here. It's like people that have grown up here and lived here or even moved here realize there's something special here. It's one where I think that because of the history of the South, we have a lot of emotion that has not been able to just let itself be heard. And we have all this just different perspectives and mix of people, especially in Birmingham, to where everyone has a different story to tell. And I feel like even when people come to Birmingham, it's this, it's someone else telling the story. It's not the locals telling the story. It's not the people that grew up here saying, well, this is what this place is about. And I feel like now you're starting to see that. And I feel like the more interest we get and the more passionate people, like keep joining this market, it's gonna bubble over and boil over, and boom, people aren't gonna know, what the heck happened in Birmingham? Why is it thriving? And two, from studying these new waves is right now we're in a really, really interesting spot in media, because legacy media is being less and less trusted. And especially cinema, you see that people are pouring, man, like $250 million into films, and it's making a third of that at the box office. You know, like we're losing money on films, and you don't have to be a CEO of a business to know that that's not good. You know, when movies start hitting the red more than they hit the green, things are going to change, and they have changed. Like look at streaming. You know, to me, I hate the fact that a movie can be in theaters for a week and then it's already on streaming, because it's not how it's supposed to be intended to be watched. You know, like I
Yeah.
am a firm believer, watch a film wherever you can. If you have a phone and you want to watch that film, watch it on your phone. If you're on a plane, you don't have earphones, you're having to watch it in silence, watch it in silence. You know, like just consume good stuff. But at the end of the day, as a creator, if I'm spending all this time putting all these minute details into this film, and I'm pulling in Marcus January and Jordan to do sound, and all these other people to really like hone in their skills, I want them to be appreciated, you know, and I want everyone's work to be bigger than life. And so when just the market doesn't call for the traditional way to watch a movie anymore, you know, it starts to just get, for me, upsetting, because it's like, well, again, it comes back to value, though. These people don't feel the value to go spend their time sitting down at a theater when they can be at home, you know, working on their laptop with a movie in the background, and get the same value to themselves. And so right now, I really do feel like and one, I feel like Birmingham's already doing it subconsciously, but I feel like there's an independent push. And one thing I saw while in New Orleans is they're not really investing into their independent filmmaking market. You know, there's a lot of independent filmmakers down there, but the focus is still on studio productions and getting tax incentives for the major studios there, and driving all the work to the people who can afford to do it, you know. And again, New Orleans has been around, the film market there has been around for 15, 20 years, and it's constantly gone through these up and down cycles where they just really haven't figured out how to make it successful in the long run. And so every time they have to, you know, reapproach city government or state government, it's difficult and it's a fight. But in Birmingham, there are no tax incentives really. There is no foundation, and people are still making these films, and they're making, excuse my language, but damn good films. You know, it's not just like people are out here with whatever they can get their hands on, and they're, you know, like they don't know lighting and it's just a school production. No, man, people are investing the finances and the time and the knowledge to be able to replicate these high budget productions, and they're doing it at a third of the cost with a third of the production crew. And it's awesome, you know.
Yeah.
And the more I meet these people, I'm starting to see where, if we continue to foster this idea, and with what you're doing, you know, foster community rather than competition, we will see a point that I think Birmingham can be an example for the future, because I think that we're already on this path. But once it gets established, I think, let me back up actually, because I think it's better said, if we create a conversation amongst ourselves, then, you know, like these talking point, if we start talking amongst ourselves, it becomes a conversation. And then if you create a conversation in the state of Alabama, you're going to have Georgia want to join in. Then you're going to have North Carolina, Mississippi, and all the surrounding states want to join this conversation. And that's why it's important to have intention in what you're creating, because if no one has a point of conversation to be able to communicate through what they're creating, then it's all going to get lost. But if you can really, you know, and this is what the French New Wave did, you know, you had all these directors going to the same film club in Paris, sitting there watching the same films, and then critiquing it in the same room, to where you're hearing the best minds in France pick apart each other's films, but not in a way of, you know, oh, that's terrible, you don't need to do that. It was to make sure that when it finally got out into the world, it was the best it could be, you know. And so here in Birmingham, if we can really accumulate, you know, these minds, and again, it's already happening, like I said, with what you're doing, you're breaking down these ideologies and these philosophies and how these people are creating. But if we can create this conversation, man, it's like this conversation can catch fire and spread everywhere, you know. Like I don't know, oh, going back to the intention, is just like in France, they created, well, at the time of the French New Wave, you know, Nazi Germany had invaded France, and was was in control of the media that was coming in. And so the French directors are getting upset that the films that were being shown were not what backed up what they felt. And so you had Godard and Renoir and Truffaut start creating these films that very subconsciously, because they couldn't just create something that called out the Nazis and said, we don't like what you're doing to us, because it would have got banned. They had to create these films that touched on the deeper meaning behind freedom and what it meant to be a human being and what it meant to love one another and what it meant to be a neighbor, and hide these in these very understated films. But when one person did it, then someone else created one in response to that, and then someone else created one in response to that. And then you had Agnes Varda, who at the time there was no women filmmakers in France, said, well, heck, I want my chance to make a film like that. So she made a film in response to that. And you had this movement that is people are creating in response to other creators. And right now, I think nationally in America, we don't have that. We have people creating, again, for escapism and creating for entertainment, creating because they're like, oh, this will be cool, which that has its place. Not putting that down at all. There's definitely a place for that. But as an independent market, it's going to be hard to create entertainment at low budget that can compete with a Marvel production when they can literally just throw a green screen behind and create a whole new world, right?
Yeah.
And so what I've realized again, is we're taking the world we have around us and using that to tell these stories, and that's powerful, man, because once we figure out what conversation that people need to hear, then that conversation is going to spark a bigger conversation that just will hopefully bring more and more people in, and we can really not dive in, but really have a strong foundation to this independent market, especially here in Birmingham, because I really do see this as being the keystone for the future of filmmaking, especially in the South.
Well, first of all, I love the passion for Birmingham. I mean, I think the Birmingham creative community is definitely incredible. And the people that make it up are extremely talented. But even more than that, it's like the generosity, it's the kindness, it's the internal support. I mean, I think the meetup we did recently at 11 Production Studio, like the people at that meetup that were behind the scenes, people like Brevel, people like Stephen DeVries and Max, like those people, just the sheer kindness and generosity that they showed. I would say me first of all, but I think just all of us that were able to make it to that. Just it's incredible, and it's so encouraging to meet them and to get to know those people. But then also just to sort of see the quality of work, like what you've talked about.
Yeah.
They're not just nice people; they're really talented, nice people. So
well, exactly,
it's really cool.
Well, and one, Cedar Creative, so I went over to Moonman Studios one day to visit, Kyle and Kevin, and Cedar was over there shooting a really important commercial. I forgot what foundation it was, but they were shooting something that was a really important piece. And so Brevel and I go in, and we kind of they're in the middle of the shooting, so we don't say anything. But we're watching, and as soon as they ended, they all come up, introduce themselves. I start asking questions, and man, it was like it. When I was in New Orleans, like I said, I felt this inclusivity where it was like, if you're not from the area, they're just not going to tell you anything, and they're just going to kind of and again, not to talk bad, but it was just like they just only communicated amongst themselves. The first time I met these Cedar guys, man.
I think the word you mean is exclusivity.
Exclusivity. Yeah.
Sorry. I think you mentioned it earlier, and I was like, wait a minute. I think, exclusivity. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Just want to clarify that. So, they sort of block people out.
Exactly. Yeah. Exclusive to outsiders, inclusive to the people that have only in New Orleans.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so it was, where was
you were saying
at?
Cedar. Sorry, you were saying Cedar Creative.
Yeah. Cedar is just that was the first time I really one, met any of those guys, first of all, but then two, able to see a team again that had grown up together in Birmingham, pushed each other to get better, added to their team, and then the work they're doing now is phenomenal. And then to be able to turn around and be as humble as they were and just invite these people, and again, not just everyone's walking on a set, so I know they know this is probably someone that at least knows a little something, or there's a reason they're here. But it was still just that, like you said, that generosity and that compassion to communicate. Well, this is our shoot, don't talk to us. There was none of that, man, and it was awesome because I really did feel as if, like this is what it's supposed to be. Because also it takes a village to make a movie. Yeah, like, I feel like there's a lot of people in smaller markets that almost get hung up on this idea of, well, I got to do it by myself, or even smaller teams are like, we can do it by ourselves. But at the end of the day, you're only limiting yourself, because even if everyone has the technical aspect or the technical skills to accomplish it, what about the different perspectives that it takes to be able to actually hash out a story in its fullest, so that way we all feel relevant. We all feel as if it's speaking to us, because if I were to create something, and let's just say, I have Balin or Gravel and then one other person shoot it, you're only getting 3 perspectives or 4 perspectives. And at the end of the day, we're leaving out so many more people that might not relate to what we're creating. And in my sense, like, yes, you can make something for a specific group, but then also, like, for me, like I said, it's about intention and giving back to the community. Why would I want to kick anyone out? And so that's one thing I really think that Birmingham does better than any other place I've been, is just this bigger idea, this almost brotherhood and sisterhood. Because that's also another thing I want to talk about, is the amount of women filmmakers here in Birmingham that are actively like putting their foot down and saying, like, I won't be denied this opportunity, man. It's impressive and it's inspiring, because again, it comes back to this idea of, like, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. It's this idea that if you have a story, we're going to let you tell it, and not we,
Yeah.
because I'm not letting you do anything. You're going to tell it,
Yeah.
as a community, we're going to let you tell it. And it's awesome because, like I said, man, it's just an example of what it should be. And I really like where it's going.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you entirely. All right. So I do want to talk about your work a
Yeah,
little bit,
totally.
and specifically some of your work that has been showing up with you in front of the camera, because
Yeah,
you didn't. I mean, so far a lot of this has been talking about you being behind the
totally.
camera, whether shooting film or whether getting
Hmm.
into more cinematic kind of
Hmm.
experiences. But I've seen quite a few recently with you where it's behind, where you end up being the subject, and in this case, I guess you even became a proud father of whatever that is that
Yeah,
you are holding there. But I want to pull up a film that
totally.
a commercial spot that y'all did recently
Hmm.
that I'm a fan of, man. I love, like, a lot of the behind the scenes on this. A lot of the behind the scenes on this is on your social.
Hmm.
I've seen, but man, it looks like a really fun partnership.
Totally.
Plus, the guy at Jacksonville State, remind me of his name.
Austin Tillison.
Austin Tillison. Yeah,
Hmm.
Austin came to our first meetup, and first time I had met him, and he in himself is super talented. And then to be
Hmm.
able to bring y'all in to do this, but let's see, we're coming up. Oh, I missed. I was talking and looking away. I got
Oh
to
man,
come
you're
back
fine.
to the hospital scene. Did I still not? There you are. Hang on, I'm bad at this. Let's see. Yeah, there you are. I guess
Woo.
it looks like you're doing a
Yeah.
breathalyzer. Is that a breathalyzer?
No, so it was a that's actually JSU has a respiratory I guess respiratory therapy
Yeah.
major. And so I was having to do a lung test to see how, I guess, like the capacity of my lungs, and they said I actually scored the highest of the day. So I've got some good lungs. I'm proud of that one.
Nice, nice. Okay, that's much better than a breathalyzer test that you
Yeah,
were
no,
taking.
totally. But
But yeah, tell me a little bit of about some of the stuff y'all have been doing, but then
totally.
also tell me what is it like when you're on set and everyone's like, "Oh, we need somebody to stand in here. Dalton, get in there." Like, is that
It's
how this happens?
sometimes, so, like, the funny thing again about working with Brevell and Brian is they will get the shot no matter what. You hear that from a lot of people, but in a sense of, like, there will be times we show up to set and they'll be like, all right, Don, we didn't tell you, but you're going to be acting today because we believe you can do it. And it's funny because that's happened once or twice. And now I've told them, I was like, hey, I need like at least a day or two to prepare. But that was also when we were just doing short films. We would show up and we'd have this idea for a short film and we'd be like, let's shoot it. And then we get there and we're like, we don't have an actor. It's like we got so excited and getting everything ready and like showing up to Brevell's house that it's like, well, who are we gonna get to act? And I have to say, I told Brevell when I first met him, it was something I've always been interested in. When High School Musical came out as a kid, or when I was a kid and High School Musical came out, my sister and I actually took my mom's camcorder and we rewrote it to fit inside our like house. And so like every room was a different set. And, I was Troy Bolton and I'm over here doing all the dances and singing and all that stuff. And luckily, my mom does not have the footage anymore.
I
Yeah,
need to reach out to your mom, I think.
but I never had fear doing it. Like that was one thing I quickly learned. Like as a child, is I never had fear stepping in front of a camera. But I never thought about doing it ever professionally. I have friends that are actors, and that was kind of I saw where my friends that act, they act. You know what I mean? Like they're characters themselves. They live it. They are it, and that just wasn't who I was. I can be in front of camera and I can be myself, but when it comes down to embodying someone else, it's just like it almost like goes against everything I believe in, right? Because I believe
Yeah.
in just like authenticity. And again, like, and I'm
Right.
not saying people aren't authentic, but if I were to act a way that I wasn't, people would be able to tell I was acting because I am who I am through and through. But the commercial spots, man, it was interesting because again, like for the JSU one, we had a lot of actors and it kind of just came down to timing, and we couldn't find anyone that fit that schedule, that could be there for that time. And so I think the day or two before, Bravel called me and he's like, hey, you're already going to be helping me with this. You're going to be on set. Do you mind just bringing some clothes that we can throw you in front of the camera? And you just have to sit there pretty much. And so the action itself is funny because like we literally just had me sitting on this table, and that was what it was going to be, was me just like hanging out. And then obviously the nurses there, actually they're not nurses, they're students. They made it very clear they're not nurses, so I want to correct that. But the students are awesome because they got into it, and the more they wanted to act, like, oh, we have all this test, and they're hooking me up to everything, which is funny because then Bravel and I are having to be like, this isn't going to look good on camera, we don't need this, but because they just wanted to like have fun with it, we're shooting extra shots. But the JSU thing, it was really fun just to be able, I grew up in the area. I grew up watching all these commercials. So it was cool just to be able to be a part of something, because I think it kind of speaks to this idea of our team being inclusive. Because that's one thing, when I talk about Bravel, when I talk to Bravel and Brian and the company that, they've let me come in and be a part of, it was really important to all of us to make sure that whoever we're working with has their voice heard. And everyone has a shot to do everything, like just because Bravel's master DOP, doesn't mean that he's always gonna just be touching camera, or he's only gonna be, like messing with lighting when he's hired as a gaffer. We all have this idea that we want to build this set where everyone has a hand on everything. I mean, obviously you have people that are good at what they do and they're going to be the ones that kind of lead the direction there, but we want to have sets where if you're interested in learning something, you have the freedom to do it. Or if you see something that could be done better, just because again you have a different perspective, we want you to be able to communicate that and have it heard. And so for me, it was that first like big reinforcement of, these people really do care about me as not only a creator but a human being, and they want me to step into positions to see if I like it or not, to see if it's something I want to continue doing or not. And again, what's cool about Bravel and Brian is, they did that on a commercial that's showing on ESPN. Usually you kind of leave the testing to something you're doing yourself, but they were like, no, man, like they were very quick to give me the confidence and say, if we didn't believe in you, we wouldn't do this for you. We wouldn't put you in front of the camera, especially with it being high stakes. And so it was cool to, one, have people that believed in me to do that, but then two, it kind of did, wake something up in me to where I don't want to pursue acting, but it's like, man, if we ever need something, or as a director, if I need a way to show an actor how to do something, I can confidently step in front of the camera, do my action, say my line, do what I need to do, and then turn around and let the real professionals do it then,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that's important. I think as a director, I really do think that you should have a good general knowledge about what everyone's job is doing, but then also how to communicate effectively with each person on set. Like I don't think like when it comes to lighting, man, like the gaffers that have worked with me, you can ask them. Like I don't know the most about lighting. I'm constantly learning about lighting from the people I work with. but I know a general idea of how I want it to look, and then I trust them to be able to achieve that look. And then what's cool is, again, with this community, they're teaching me how they got that when I ask. They're not just like, oh well, this is how I did it just because I did these lights up. They're like, well, actually, you want a moody look. So what I did is I put these lights at this temperature and shot it through this fabric because that will help achieve this. And they're breaking it down from the smallest technical aspect that they can think of, and that's so cool to me because there's not a lot of professionals that do that.
Yeah. It's definitely, they use the term gatekeeping, where,
Exactly.
where like people that know the information want to keep themselves as the only ones that
Yeah,
really know it. And it definitely seems like in the commercial space or even in the film space, not too many people in the Birmingham area, at least, are like that. So
yeah,
I want to know. I want to know about this hospital shot, the middle one with the baby,
totally.
the your
So
father, your introduction to fatherhood here.
So what's funny is, I say this now, I don't want a kid. That's something that actually, like I have a lot of, or I have a dog, and my dog is my life, and I am so passionate about him. But when it comes to children, it's just, I don't know. It's just something where I know I have a lot of time left, in my life to decide that, but right now, I think like one shooting this commercial really kind of solidified that too. It's just like,
I
all right,
mean, y'all didn't have an actual birth, did you? That's not what
No, but
solidified
that's
it.
absolutely not. But again, it was the action. It was just having to kind of put myself in this mindset. It was funny. It was for the commercial is for RMC's OGBYN. RMC is a regional medical center here in Anniston, Alabama. But they hired our team to just pretty much do an updated commercial highlighting the doctors, highlighting the nurses, and then the intimacy that you get from this place, right? And so Nancy, who again, talented actress, talented director,
She's been
uh,
in a ton of things recently. I
dude.
saw her in the thing that 11 Productions. I think y'all worked with them on that, didn't you? With the police. I think it was
So
the
I
Jefferson
didn't.
County.
I was
Go
gonna say
ahead.
I didn't personally work with them on that one, but I know Balin and a couple other people did. I don't know if Gravel
Yeah,
did. I don't want to
I
say
know
for sure.
Brennan.
Yeah,
I think he did the color and stuff,
and
but it
then
was
Max did the
11.
edit, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
It was 11 Productions. Like it was their sort of like they were the
Yeah,
agency, but yeah. I mean, she killed it in that role. At least what I've seen from the stills, it looks incredible. I can't
totally.
wait to see the final product. But
Man, me
anyway,
too.
yeah, yeah. But
As I say, I'm
she's been in a
excited.
lot of things recently.
Yeah, well, and like ever since I met her, I've had so much respect for like the way she works, and even when I've shot a couple things, she's been the AD on, and I tell her like it is crazy because it wouldn't have the day would never have gone as smooth as it did without her. Like she is so talented at the way she again actress and act like or cut that out. Being an actress, hold on.
What is it that you're questioning about what you're saying there?
So one thing that I've been made privy to is you call actresses actors now, right? Because it's one term, because you don't differentiate the difference between a woman actor and a male actor, right? Because it can be offensive to like women actors who want to be seen as one role rather than a sub role, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. They
Um,
do still award those separately. I mean, is that a big?
yeah,
I guess is that like a big controversy right now? I guess in the industry.
honestly, I think it comes down to personal preference.
I get
I
that.
think I
Yeah,
think it's one of those things that will change over time. But so the more I meet people, I try to listen to like what it is that they repeat, right? And that's one
right.
thing, especially the more I work with people that I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's just like keep everyone at the same level. Don't differentiate because at the end of the day, it's one job, right? They're not two
Right.
different jobs. It's one job.
Right.
And so myself, I try to just follow that up so that way, lead by example. Um, I don't know. That's just personal preference. But
Yeah.
going back, when Nancy acts, she can tap into whatever character that like that she's portraying, whether it's a short film or commercial. It's just she's really talented with that. But man, when she's directing or assistant directing, I haven't met anyone yet that brings this professionalism that she does to set. And even me, and like in my development as a director, it is so cool to have someone that pushes me in that aspect, because that's where I fall short sometimes. I'm a conceptualizer, I'm an idea guy, and so sometimes the realism of the situation will kind of trickle down and I don't pay attention to it. And then every time I worked at Nancy, like she's making the stuff go, she's making it happen because I have these ideas. I'm like, this is what I want. She's like, this is how we're going to do it. And
That's so cool. It's so cool to like think of her in a role like that,
mhm,
specifically. I mean, because I've seen her act in
mhm,
various roles, but I haven't been able to see her as much behind the scenes. I think I have seen that some just in
mhm,
BTS kind of stuff, but
totally.
it's pretty neat to know that that she is serving both of those kind of roles, and
Exactly,
it
man.
seems like a really neat thing in the Birmingham area in general, because she's not the only one that I've seen like that, where
Mhm.
they act in things, but then they also do behind the scenes jobs. Do you know from? I mean, I guess I plan to interview her at some point, but I'm
Mhm.
curious to know, and I guess maybe this is probably best asked to her,
Mhm.
what it is that she hopes to do more and more of. Does she want to be behind the scenes or in front of the camera more so? But anyway, I don't
Yeah.
expect you to be able to answer that
Yeah.
necessarily. I think I probably should ask her.
Totally.
But all of that stuff is really cool. The stuff that Brevell and the whole
Mhm.
team is creating. But it's really neat to see you step in to sort of fill the needs at times whenever it comes to
Yeah.
people in
Well,
front of the camera. Not to
exactly.
mention, you look great on camera, man. So props
I
to you on
appreciate
that.
that.
I haven't heard any lines you've delivered yet, so I'm
Yeah,
curious
not
to.
yet. Not yet. I think even the short films we've done with me have all been like silent, or not
Yeah.
silent, but like no dialogue, which is interesting. I need to ask Breville about that.
Yeah, he's got an issue with you. I don't. You might
Yeah,
want to might want
exactly.
to be like, hey man, tell me
Yeah, I'll
what's
be like,
going on
What's up with
here.
my voice? We can do
Yeah,
some. There's voice editing things now. Nah,
exactly.
just playing around. But going back to the commercial real quick. When I knew that I'd be acting alongside Nancy, one, I knew that I was gonna have to kind of bring it, because I was like, she's really talented and it's gonna show on screen if someone can actually act really well, and then someone's just standing next to him, like, what do I do? And so, it was, we get there, we had to have a nurse that actually coaches the dads during the birthing process, like how to breathe, how to support your wife, and all this stuff. And so that nurse was in there giving me direction. And it was funny because I got in character, man. I was sitting there, and Nancy turned it on, and she's sitting there like actually like giving birth, like, and I'm starting to freak out. I'm like, oh my god, are you okay? Breathe, push. And then the doctor's in there, he's getting into it, and it was a moment where I was like, yeah, I don't want to have a kid. This is intense. And the kid wasn't even there.
Well, yeah, out comes a doll.
Exactly. Outcomes doll.
Is there
With
somewhere that we can watch this?
not
Because I
right
haven't
now.
seen. Okay, I haven't
I was
seen
gonna
the
say,
actual video yet.
I know. We just delivered the final rough cut before it's gonna get colored, and then just
Yeah.
kind of put all the graphics on and stuff like that. And so I want to say right after New Year's when they're kind of expecting to start showing the commercial, which will be local television down here in Calhoun County. I don't know how far RMC spreads their commercials, but I
Right.
I think obviously local, and then across Alabama you'll see it and stuff. But
I'll link it in the description as
yeah,
soon as I
definitely,
find it,
of
because
course.
this will probably be coming out in early January.
Okay,
So hopefully we'll have some links that we can connect people
definitely.
to be able to see your work in its full glory.
Yeah.
So
Well, and see, like that too, like just to before we wrap, one thing just to kind of talk about the team again. That's one thing that I've been really impressed with is no matter who we're making these projects for, or what the purpose is, whether it is like a documentary piece we're doing, or whether we're doing commercial work or a short film, or even recently we just wrapped our first feature film, um, which did that was really cool because again we shot an entire feature, a musical of all things. We shot a musical feature in 10 total days across like 3 or 4 months. But anytime we're on these sets, man, like what I've been talking about is there is this belief that one, we can do it no matter what. No one ever doubts anything. We all come with these big ideas, and what's so cool is we don't leave set until those big ideas happen. And we've never really had to sacrifice on those big ideas, no matter what it is, man. We've constantly found a way to make it happen. But then two is just the ability to remain humble during this journey has been really cool. Like, no matter where our projects have gone or the success we've seen, it's really cool to be on a team and be in a community that understands that you're only as good as your next project. You know, it doesn't matter what you did before. If you're not hitting your next project with 110%, passion, dedication, um, anything, like it, you're not going to keep going. And this foundation is going to start cracking. And so it's really cool to be a part of a team and a community that, one, understands what it takes to take itself seriously, but then two, that is constantly, I'm not going to say reinventing itself, because, like I don't think it's a complete reinvention, but I just feel like we're this community is constantly adapting, and we're constantly like bringing more people in, and then this market shifts just a little bit, like we're doing a lot of commercial work right now, and then more people have been shooting films, like there's a lot of films being shot in Birmingham by these teams, and there's a lot of short films, and it's just the more work that's done here, the more work that will keep coming, and it's exciting to see what the future will be.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
It,
it's just
the feature films seem to be a big, like, I mean,
mhm,
I think a lot of people, I know Max Tatum, he's talked
mhm,
about his goal is to do, he's got a feature film that he wants to work on.
mhm.
Brody Burgess had a feature film that he wants to do. I mean, I feel like inevitably people are all
Oh
moving,
man,
at least the ones that are already doing short films. That's sort of like their
totally.
next goal. So it's really neat to already see what's coming out of
Mhm.
Birmingham, and I even more so what's coming.
I
Let
don't
me ask you
totally.
this.
Yeah.
I want to know, what would you tell people that are just getting started? And is this middle picture supposed to be you?
Hold on. Let me see. I have my camera blocking. Yeah, that
Uh,
is. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that's
I
me.
was
So
just I saw that in I think I was stalking your Facebook page, or
yeah.
maybe somebody else's Facebook page that had tagged you in it, and I was like, I think that's him, but I wasn't really sure. So
Mhm.
is
So
that a
my
painting of you?
Yeah, my mom, when, I have two other siblings, and when I guess we hit a certain age, my mom had paintings done of all of us, and so I'm 3 years older than my sister, and then 7 or 8 years older than my brother. But at that same age, we all got these paintings done of us. Funny little tidbit is my brother's painting has 6 toes because he was crossing his toes during the picture. Or during the painting, and the painter didn't realize it, and so he ended up painting the extra toe that was crossed over. Um, and so I always joke with him about that. I'm just like,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
don't bring
It's the
anyone
little
over.
details, man.
Yeah,
It's the little
exactly,
details.
exactly.
That's funny. So, advice for beginners, people that are just
Mhm.
getting started out, just what would you tell them, or what would you tell yourself if you were talking to yourself back when you were first getting started even?
Just don't be afraid. Like I think that with an industry, whenever you're looking at something bigger than yourself, right? Whenever your goals are bigger than yourself, I think it can be really daunting, to look at what you want to accomplish over the course of a lifetime, because you have to start somewhere, right? And so, for me, I know even before I knew that this is what I wanted to do in its entirety, I knew that if I was going to invest my time into this, I didn't want to stop until I reached the end, if that made sense. And my goal is to be a director of films, and that doesn't necessarily mean a Hollywood director, just a director of films. And um, I think it's really easy to allow that fear to paralyze you at first. And even constantly, like whenever I'm in, like even now, I'm thinking of a new script or new idea, it's so easy to stall the creative process because of the fear of, is this the right decision? Even just like on a small detail of like when you're on set, putting a light here rather than here, is this the right decision to do? Or is this a mistake I'm making? And I feel like that part is where so many people end up even like clocking out, because it's just, they can get overwhelming, and the bigger you get and the further you go, those decisions get more and more important, and they get bigger, and you start having more people that rely on these decisions. And so, like for any starter, is just be fearless, because at the end of the day, you're going to make mistakes, and we all make them. I continue to make them, but you don't realize that sometimes like the mistakes you make are where the art happens. Like if you want to be an artist, you're not going to find art in the perfect picture. because you're just not. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's just something that, like, even if you study all these great artists, their best work is when they messed up, typically.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
or
and
when.
that's where the details, like the actual, I guess, nuances are. You know, a
Exactly,
lot of times
yeah.
in those variations from what was expected. You know.
Well, exactly, and like that's, um well, and to further answer your question too, like secondly, study. I think a lot of people, especially in the social media age, feel like they can pick up a camera, play with it for a little bit, and then they should be making movies. And I feel like so many people get discouraged because they'll invest a couple months into it, but they're not seeing the results of like what they're seeing online, because it's so easy. You get on YouTube and it's, here's my second video, I got 1 million views, check it out. But you can tell like it's shot on an Ari or a Red Raptor, something that obviously someone who's just starting off isn't gonna have access to. So either they're lying about how much experience they have, or they have help behind the scenes that's allowing them to do this. And so I feel like, what they say, comparison is a killer. You start comparing yourself, and you're gonna realize that, not realize, because I don't think it's a realization, but you're gonna feel as if you're behind everyone else. But if you're studying, and that was where I realized, if you're studying and you find something you're interested in and you delve into that and you spend your time learning, you're gonna be okay. Like, and so those are the two things: be fearless and be knowledgeable, because I think those two things will lead you everywhere you need to go.
I love the idea of study because I think,
Hmm.
I mean, social media, whenever I used to teach marketing classes in high school, I talked about how, students are great consumers of social
Yeah.
media, but
Yeah.
they're not always great users of social media, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like using it
Totally.
to create a business or to grow something or to make money one day.
Hmm.
Like they all want to do that a lot of times, or they think they can do that because they're great consumers of it. Like
Hmm.
I've seen great social media. I know how to make it. No, you
Exactly.
don't necessarily know how to make it. And I'd say the same thing with film or even
Hmm.
commercial work. Like we're all great consumers of film and great
Yeah.
consumers of marketing, but we're not always great makers of it.
Well.
It takes that, it takes those skills along
Hmm.
with that experience and knowledge to really make it. And those skills are the things that you have to study, whether it's
Exactly.
just camera basics or whether it's composition and framing or
Hmm.
whether it's lighting. And also, I think like what you're doing, man, surround yourself with talented people that you
Hmm.
can learn from. But I love the fact that you went back to like the basics of studying
Yeah,
again. Like
man.
I'm going to study history. It's
Well,
like I love
exactly.
that. That's
Well,
great.
for me, like, it was just like I guess, like, I guess with history is like you can follow a path, right? You can kind of see the actions people did, but also the mentality of those people. Like, why did they make these decisions? What was influencing them to make these decisions? But like, everything's history. What we're talking about now will one day be history. And so I
Right.
think it's important to understand how we got to the point that we're at in order to be able to take that point and move it into the future. And I think that's what differentiates an artist from a creator too, because that's the other thing. People can create, and people can be great creators even if they don't really understand all the rules or understand what it is they're doing, right? Like, I there are people that get lucky every time, and that's just the truth of it. Every time they put their hands on something, it turns out to be beautiful, or it turns out to be exactly what they wanted to. But then it just comes back to, you know what's the purpose? Why'd you do
Yeah.
it? And I
Yeah.
think in order to have a strong why, you have to understand why you even approached it to begin with, and so yeah, biggest advice is be fearless, study, and then just be willing. To end it on that is be willing, because there's going to come a lot of opportunities, and there's so many things that I didn't want to do. Like, even going to what you mentioned earlier is like, people saying, well, I enjoy taking photos, but I didn't want to be a photographer, and I completely agree with that. But then I feel like, if you have skills to sharpen, and that there are opportunities even in the slightest that will allow you to work on what it is that will be beneficial to you, then take them. Especially if you don't have anything going on. I feel like, we all live such busy lives that it's easy to relish when we have time to ourselves, right? Or you have nothing going on. But in that time, like, be a little more disciplined and just take even like a little bit of that time to work on it, work on what you're passionate about, and be willing to take the opportunities that come your way, whether you want to do them or not at first. And then, because then you get to decide what it is that is worth your time and then what's not worth your time. If you're never giving everything opportunities, you're never actually going to determine a value for yourself and a value for your work and a value for the time that you do, which, on the business side, that's important, because if you don't do that, you're going to burn out. And that's one thing I feel like, going back to what I just said previously, a lot of people end up burning out early just because they don't give themselves, one, the time to make mistakes, but then two, like we were just talking about, is they don't understand why they're not accomplishing what it is they're accomplishing. So
yeah, and compensation helps to actually get paid helps with burnout too. So.
As I say, we all have bills, like that's the other
Exactly.
thing. I feel like artists and creators are very quickly to forget the fact that this world runs on making sure that you can survive. Like I tell people all the time, there are days where literally I'm like, I've got all these ideas, I got all these stories, and then they're like, cool, well, like, what work are you doing? And I'm like,
what are you getting paid for?
Exactly. And I'm like, you're right, but I'm also a firm believer, if you're authentic and you're passionate and you're putting 100% of yourself into whatever you're doing, money's gonna flow. There's enough money in the world for all of us, but you also have to be open to it, right? Like, if you keep pushing it away, then eventually nothing's gonna come in. But that's a whole different conversation, though.
All right. Well, I want to know what's next for you. What's on the horizon?
Okay.
Currently, you're working with Brevell and Brian. What is it that is future plans within that sort of partnership, or even beyond?
Well, at the beginning of this year, I helped Brevell with Stellar Cine, and so I've been helping him just kind of do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff with that. I'm communicating with emails, doing networking, just, I guess, more the like business admin stuff. We're just trying to get that going to help provide professional equipment to the area, especially I don't know if you saw where Cat Williams just bought the Fort McClellan here in Jacksonville, which is literally 4 or 5 minutes from Brevell's house.
Wow.
And so, like I think that there's a big opportunity for equipment rental in the area. And then too, we want to be able to provide tools for any filmmaker that wants to work with the level of equipment that we're able to pull in. And you have Moonman Camera and South Cine that are doing that as well. And we just want to be a part of that family that is able to provide different equipment to whoever needs it at the time. And so that's been, a big project of ours recently. We're actually about to start a podcast as well, inspired by you, called Behind the Craft. Yeah. Well, no, you'll be a guest on it. Don't worry.
What is it? Well, I'm not worried about the. I'm excited about the podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm worried about my inspiration to it. That sounds dangerous.
Oh no. It's called Behind the Craft, and it's pretty much us just like talking to different people, not just in Birmingham but across the industry. So we can kind of start bringing people to this idea of Birmingham, but talking about their philosophies and their approach to filmmaking, because we feel like one of the things that's left out in a lot of the filmmaking side of conversation is like, what is your actual mindset behind why you created this? Like break it down and tell us like what you went through as a child that then inspired, like this scene right here.
Dude, I would love to hear something like that with just Max Tatum.
Oh, dude. Oh, man. Yeah.
Man, getting into his mind, like the visions that he saw and then was able to like translate to film.
It's amazing, man.
I would love to know more of his experience and just thought process through it. So that sounds exciting.
Well, and then in the sense of gatekeeping, like I think everyone we talk to believes in taking down gatekeeping. And I feel like this is a big way to be able to foster these conversations and show people, hey, like this is literally how I created this,
Yeah.
And if you're willing to talk about that, one, all power to you, because that shows that you have no fear in what you create. You do not care if people know where it came from, how you did it, how you're going to shoot your next thing. It's fearless. You are confident in yourself and what your vision 100%, which is the first part of it. And secondly, any kid that feels as if, or anyone, I'm not gonna just say kid, if anyone's out there and they have this idea and they have this feeling or this emotion, they're like, I just don't know if this is the right thing to put on film. Boom, you hear someone else talk about this random occurrence that they had at 2, 3, 4 years old, that they're thinking about at 25 years old, and they're creating a film about it. It just opens up the doors to anyone that didn't think it was possible before, simply because they didn't know, didn't know
Yeah.
how, didn't know why. And so that's something. And then one thing, like I've heard a lot of people talk about a film club. That Birmingham's tried to do a film club, and it's just everyone's so busy, it hasn't really like caught on. And that's something I'm really passionate about. Is I want to get a physical space to where everyone can meet up, and like obviously we'd have like a way to call in and stuff. But I want to start doing either like a quarterly or like a bi-monthly meetup, to where we're not just meeting up to socialize. It's like where we're like doing workshops with each other, and teaching each other how, like again, like how 11 Productions is shooting their commercials for Publix, like walking us through how they're able to, do the robot, and then giving everyone this test of the robot. Because again, at the end of the day, if more people can step onto a set and know exactly how to use that robotic arm, we can bring more business to Birmingham, because there's that many more qualified people. Focus pulling, like I don't think people realize being an AC is super freaking hard. Like I've had to step in and do that a couple times, and
It's
it's
hard to
not easy.
pull focus on the camera in my hands,
Exactly.
much
Yeah.
less if that camera is across the room.
And you
So,
have this tiny little dial that, like, to me, it doesn't make sense. It's like you're telling me this lens is this big around, and I have this dial that's this big, and it
yeah,
is supposed to equate to this, and it's just like, but I want to learn from these people. There's a lot of people in town that are really good at it, and every time, multi-million dollar films come in, they're calling them. Just to speak of one, Amy, I don't know her last name, but I'm just gonna call her Amy the AC. When she sees this, she'll be like, "Hey,
Amy
that's
the
me."
AC.
I'll,
I need to
I'll
find
get
out
on
who that is.
Instagram and DM
Yeah,
you.
yeah. We'll link her below.
Exactly, yeah. But like the first time I met her, I realized like this is an art. The ability to watch a screen and anticipate where you want the audience's focus to go is an art, and I want to learn that. Foley. I know a couple of people that are into creating sound and doing Foley work. I know nothing about that, but with this film club idea, we can have an entire workshop that is simply how to create sound, how to create Foley, how I create Foley. And I think, in terms of building the foundation, I think that's a big step that we as a community need to take, because again, just looking at history, this is what sparked these new waves. When you get the best minds in an area under one roof, teaching each other and critiquing each other constructively, you get the best work out of that area.
Yeah,
And I think that's where, just very really, we will see an unprecedented shift to independent markets, because I think that'll be what it takes to compete with the Hollywood system, because at the end of the day, no matter how big your independent market gets, you're competing with Hollywood. Um, and in the past, I would have said that wasn't an impossible task, but right now, like Hollywood is showing its cracks, and I'm fully confident that if we keep going the way we are, that we will be able to compete with that and be able to show people that you don't have to have a $250 budget to shoot a movie that people feel,
yeah.
and relate to. So
Well, I love the idea of anything that just sort of brings people together in the area,
yeah,
and like you said, like the way to compete and get attention to the Birmingham creative community is it's almost a numbers game. When there's
yeah,
that many
exactly.
qualified people available to
Hmm.
hire and to work with, then people you can't ignore that. And
Exactly,
especially
dude.
if those people are like not just not just like taught, but actually skilled and talented,
Hmm.
which obviously we've got the people here that are already like that. It's
Hmm.
just a matter of growing that talent and those numbers. So
Well, see,
that's cool.
what's amazing to me is in Atlanta and LA, there's schools that are teaching this. And again, these people are leaving those schools, going next door and working on these sets. There's nothing here, dude. And that's where I'm saying like there's something special here in Birmingham. Is there are not these groups or these schools or these professionals that are developing, this talent. This is raw talent. This is people with passion that are cultivating it themselves and putting it out into the world. And that's where I just, like that's not happening anywhere else right now. In Atlanta, you have these people developing these stars, developing these studios, developing these films, and it goes through 100 eyes before it comes out. So you have all these chances to fix your mistakes. Here, you're lucky if you get on a set with 25 people. Like it's a big production if you have 25 people here. But I've seen things like Chris Kremlin, man. Chris Kremlin, has the number 2 Netflix film, or had the number 2 Netflix film for a minute there, and it's just like he's from Birmingham. He developed
he's a
himself.
Great guy.
Yeah, man. Like
his episode actually comes out next. I got to
there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's really cool because the more you dive into this community, you realize it's what my girlfriend calls a unicorn. So she does marketing out of LA. And she's working with all these bigger companies and stuff. And she told me, she's like, you have a unicorn in Birmingham because it's driven by the people. It is a grassroots movement that actually has the passion and the skill, not just the skills behind it, but again, like the cameras, the equipment, the lighting, the lenses, like there's no excuse, so to speak, there's no excuse not to take on the challenge. So yeah, it's really exciting, man. And again, I get excited just talking about it because again, it's not even for me, it's for paving the way so that way the generations that come after us too see that you can be from a small town in Alabama, and if you want to make a movie, you can make a movie, so.
I love it. And I look forward to that movie you're going to make real soon.
Yes, sir.
All right. So tell me, this is always the question that I sort of wrap up on.
Okay.
So who inspires you? I can already imagine a few of these names you've already mentioned. Feel free to sort of rehash some of those
Totally.
and feel free to add to it. But this can be people that you look up to and admire from afar, or it could be people that you work alongside that just sort of like sharpen your edges and push you into new levels of your own work.
I mean, obviously, like as a creator, there's a lot of directors and cinematographers that I look up to just for the work that they've done, right? Because again, it's not necessarily about the things they created, but how they created them, the reasons for creating them, and what they were able to accomplish through creating that. And Tarkovsky is one of them, one of my favorite directors. And if you've never watched a Russian film, it's just mind blowing, man. It's like it's honestly some of the most poetic stuff I've ever seen. And to come from like a place that's considered pretty rough, it's just like this contrast of subtlety and almost just like this like this magic that comes out of the film, man. It's beautiful. And then I love Godard is one of my favorite French directors, just simply because at the start of the French New Wave, he was someone that was willing to do things differently and do things his own way to not just prove a point, but to show and lead by example and say like, this is what we can do and this is how we're going to do it. And even his own story is interesting because like the first film he made, he had to steal his dad's typewriters. His dad like owned a typewriter business, so he stole a couple of those from the office, sold them, funded his first movie, and his dad called the cops on him. So it's just like this willingness to get it done no matter what, right?
We're not encouraging people to steal their dad's cameras.
Yeah, absolutely not.
But it's a neat story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, different time period.
Yeah.
But anyway, like people like that, because I could sit here and name different directors all day, but then, the people that have touched my life. One specifically, man, my grandmother, I got to give her a shout out real quick. Ever since I was a child, she pushed me to just be a better person. And not just like by telling me, but like she is the most generous, thoughtful, loving person I know. And I see how the world would give back to her the more she gave back to the world. And it was a lesson I learned really early on. And just kindness, like if you're kind to people, people are kind to you, and that's what this world needs. And so in all of my work and everything I do and just who I am, I mean, like my grandmother's just been the biggest supporter. And even, like it's funny, when I graduated college, I came home and we're eating here in town, and she's like, so what are you gonna do with your life? And I was like, I'm gonna be a director, you know. And then the other day, you know, like, and she believed in me, never questioned it. And then every time I show her work, it's funny because she's like, "This is awesome, man," you know, like, yeah, you're a director. I'm like, well, not yet, you know, like we're still working. And then recently, you know, like I told her, I was like, hey, I think I'm gonna build something that's gonna compete with the Hollywood system, you know, like just crazy stuff. My grandmother doesn't know about any of that. Like she doesn't care. And about all that. And you know, she's like, I believe in you. You know, she's like, whatever you can do, or whatever you set your mind to, you can do it because you've already proven to me that. And so, you know, it's just this like this blind support, you know, no matter what it is. And I feel like everyone needs at least one person like that in their life, because like
I
without
agree.
it, yeah, without it, man, you know, like it's just, we have doubt, you know, and you need someone that just says, don't doubt, go. And then the people I work with, you know, like it's hard because I'm inspired by everyone, you know. Again, we've listed so many names, man, and so like, hey, again, I don't want to leave anyone out, so I don't want to like rehash them out right now and then be like, oops. But again, you know, like Gravel, Balin, Max, Max Soto, Nancy, Kristen DeBoer, you know, the producer. Like, there are all these people that I've had the pleasure of meeting, that have contributed to not only my skill set but how I'm viewing the world around me. Because you know, at the end of the day, I think we're all a little crazy. You know, we're in a small market. I mean, seriously, man, we're in this small market, and you know, in a sense, we're fighting the impossible. You know, and you know, for me myself, I have friends that are doing awesome things in the world. You know, and it's so cool to see them growing outside the film community and stuff. But like, you know, I feel like the film community moves a little slower. So you know, and when you're in it, you know, it's can sometimes get daunting, because you know, like some of my friends are in the corporate world and they're now getting promoted into these big positions, and you know, they're making buku money, and they're, you know, like heads of all these things. And you know, because we're building something from the start, it's almost like, you know, it can get daunting, again, looking at the challenge in front of you, saying, you know, are we making as much progress as we should at this point? And so being around these people, you know, that just wholeheartedly believe in what we're doing, and can just look me in the eyes, and they're like, man, you're supposed to be here, this is where you're meant to be, and this is what we're meant to do. It inspires me, man. And then again, just how good everyone is, like
Yeah.
the fact that every time I meet these people again, you know, like every time I get on set with Balin, it's like his work level's up, man, you know. And that's so cool. It's just like the fact that, you know, I thought when I first met these guys, y'all are so good at what you do, how are you going to get better? And to see how they're getting better, it's just like, dude, like, when are you going to stop, you know? And then it inspires me, because it's like, if you're able to get this much better in a month, you know, because like, again, I travel down to New Orleans and I'll stay down there for a couple weeks. When I come back, it's like Balin's learned a new technique, or Brevel's learned a new technique, and you know, they're walking me through that, like, hey, this is how we're gonna light this now, because I like how the eye light looks right here, and if we combine this with this light over here, you know, I think this is the new style. And so it's cool to constantly be around people that are conscious about what they're doing. And so it's just, you know, like, again, they all inspire me. And the community itself, man, you know, it's just inspiring to see people who are willing to put in the work that they are, because at the end of the day, they don't have to. Everyone that's in this area that wants to be a filmmaker could, I'm not gonna say easily, but they could move. They could go to New Mexico, they could go to New Orleans, they could go to LA, they could go to New York, they could go to Atlanta, but they didn't. And they chose, and they continue to choose to stay here. And being from here, it's inspiring, because it's again, just, you know, like I've always been taught, leave leave a place better than you found it. You know, if you're going to someone's house, pick up, leave it better than you found it. And I feel like, as a human being on this earth, if we can leave this Birmingham film market just a little bit better than we found it, we've done our job. And I feel like I feel like we've already done that, and continue to raise the bar every day. So
I like it, man. Well, listen, Dalton, thank you so much for
of course, man.
just talking with me and sharing, and really genuinely thank you for the support and the kindness that you've shown me personally, just in our interactions that we've been able to have, whether on Instagram with DMs or whether on comments on different posts
Hmm.
or the times we've been fortunate enough to meet in person. I really do appreciate you,
Totally.
and I love your passion for the industry. I love your passion for the people that you've had a chance to work with. And I can't wait to see more coming from you, man. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everything you do too, Brian. Like I think, like I said, you inspired one of our podcasts. So there's another person. I think that what you're doing is just really powerful for the community because I feel like you have unlocked a door that has allowed even again us creators to say I didn't know that person was in our community or I didn't know that's what they did. And so like just from your own like from this podcast, man, I have met people and DM people and been like, hey, saw you on Brian's, like let's chat, and so you're literally doing like God's work out here, man. So I really
Well,
appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. And thank you again for joining me today.
of course.